Mark, thank you for having me.
Well, this is something that we hope to do every 4, 6, 8 weeks, is to have a guest live with us. And it's such a privilege to have Jan with us today as kind of our inaugural guest on Marking the End Times. Jan is the leader, the head of Olive Tree Ministries. I know many of you know Jan, are very familiar with her ministry, understanding the times. Really, for many years now, I would say that through Jan and through the ministry she's really has a flagship Bible prophecy ministry. It's known across the country, across the world. She's had just some incredible conferences with great speakers there over the years, up in the Minneapolis, St. Paul area. Jan, just kind of personally from me, I can say there's been, dozens and dozens of people, I don't know, maybe in the hundreds of people that have come to our church, and they'll come down after the service, and I'll be down front, and I'll start talking to them, and they'll say, yes, I heard about your church through listening to Jan Markell. And they'll say, I live in Oklahoma City or Edmond and had no idea, what you're doing here, and found out, you're right here in the area. So you've been your ministry has been a great blessing to me and to our church.
Well, I'm so pleased to hear that, Mark. You and I have been working together now 15 years. We had a conversation at Jewish Voice back in 2008, and I was eager to make you a part of the lineup and everything. And you were a mainstay, and you still are, with the Understanding the Times Conference Ministry, and I want to thank you for that. And we've got that coming up again Thursday, June the 6th. And it's a little different format because we try to do it on one night and bring in the leading voices of eschatology, and we have now for 3 years. Before that, as you know, the venue was the mega conference, but now we're reaching the mega through the electronic. I think what changed, Mark, I think COVID changed mindsets, and during the 2020 crisis, people realized if they wanted to participate in a lot of things, they had to do it online, and that has stuck, and I'm very grateful for that.
Yes, I want to be there in the Minneapolis area on June the 6th at One Night Prophecy event with Pastor Mark Henry. So people are in that area, they can come there and be a part of that, and of course they can live stream that. So it's going to be a tremendous opportunity to be there with you on that evening. Yes. So really looking forward to that.
MarkHenryMinistries.com, and that's Thursday, June 6th, 7 p.m. Central. Hope you can join us.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. I'm looking forward to that. But anyway, just suffice it to say, you've been a great blessing to me. You've been a great blessing to our church. And so when I was thinking about, beginning to add this feature of different programs of having a guest, you're the first person that I thought of that we wanted to contact. So you're our inaugural guest. So here we are. So.
Well, I'm happy to inaugurate anything that's holy and biblical. Yep.
Amen. God bless you. Well, before we get into what we're going to talk about today, I just do want to mention again the new book that Jimmy Evans and I have co-authored, AI and the Antichrist. It's available now on Amazon. You can get a copy of it there. I want to read just a paragraph real quickly to kind of give you a little synopsis of what the book's about. It says, it's on page 53 of our book, says the development of surveillance technology and data tracking methods in recent years has laid the groundwork for the pervasive oversight that will occur during the Antichrist rule. Global satellites, 5G and soon 6G networks, the Internet of Things, drones, roadside scanners, biometrics databases, and advanced artificial intelligence systems will enable comprehensive monitoring of all individuals across the globe. Every transaction will be observed. All communications will be retrieved and analyzed. It may become impossible to travel, purchase anything, access health care, or even pray privately without government knowledge and consent. The Antichrist will build on present trends to create an omnipresent police surveillance state regulated through his mark of allegiance. So that's just a little sample of what's in this book. A lot of just good basic information about the Antichrist, but a lot of it's related to the exponential increase in technology we see that the Antichrist will use, because we know the Antichrist will have to have the tools of world domination, and they're here now. And so this is just another aspect of the stage being set for the end times. Well, Jana, I thought as we begin here, before we get into the topic, I want to talk about what's happening in Israel today and some of these things related to Ezekiel 38 and 39. But you've been doing this for a long time. You've been watching the signs of the times and proclaiming and heralding the coming of Christ and for people to be ready. And so I thought I'd just start off by asking you, just over the last years that you've been doing this, what are the main things that you have seen and the main things that you're really focused on right now as it concerns these signs of the times?
Well, I think you've hit on a huge one with your book, and I don't say that as a book promotion, but as the topic you have picked, I think is so key and so relevant for 21st century believers, because the stage is so being set, as you just said, for everything that's going to happen in that Daniel 70th week. And what's going to run it? Artificial intelligence will run that kingdom. So I think we have to try to understand it. I think, Mark, another thing that's changed significantly in probably 15 years is what's going on in our churches today. And you know, you as a pastor, you get that more than some get that. And there's been kind of an avoidance of all that we're talking about. And I think I'm kind of seeing that maybe break down a little bit in a good way, because the people are going to pastors and leaders and saying, you know what, we have to understand this. We have to understand what the future holds and the order of the future. And in some cases, of course, their theology is not in agreement with us, which is a problem. And in other cases, the theology does agree, but they've held back because they're afraid of offending by presenting eschatology, whatever, one presentation or a series. But I'm seeing that break down because the people are saying, we have to understand the times. We have to be like the sons of Issachar and understand the times, and we can't if our pulpit is silent. So I think that's a good feedback, Mark, in that I'm hearing from people that a little bit more are their churches making an inroad into the topics that we're talking about. Now, there's a long, long way to go, believe me, because there are a lot of frustrated people left.
Yes, no, that's one of the sad things that's been out there. But I do think, yeah, maybe there's a little bit of turning in some places, and that's good because, you know, Jesus, you know, when his disciples asked him, what's going to be the sign of your coming in the end of the age, he didn't say forget about that and don't worry about it. He gave a long litany of signs.
Yeah, but we've got some things exploding. I mean, including right now a war in the Middle East. We've got wars and rumors of wars. We got rumors and we got literal wars, and we got another one on the horizon with China is going to invade Taiwan likely in the next 6 months or so. So in that these so-called signs of the times are virtually exploding on the scene that you and I have tried to document for years, people are just frustrated that they can't be on the other side of a pulpit that's explaining it all to them.
Well, that's right, and people want answers to what's happening in our world today, and thankfully, by God's grace and His Word, His inspired Word, we have the answers, so we need to give that to them. Well, what I want to focus with you about is, you know, what's happening that we all see happening in our world today over in Israel and how that relates to Iran and some other nations. But, you know, this week, in fact, just, you know, 2 days ago, Israel is celebrating its 76th anniversary, the modern state of Israel. It started May the 14th, 1948. And so Israel has celebrated its 76th anniversary, but it's done that in the shadow of the October 7th massacre and the ongoing Israel-Gaza war. And there was an article in the Washington Post this week that asked the question, will Zionism survive? You know, is Zionism going to survive this? And, of course, to define that term Zionism, you know, I'm a Christian Zionist. We believe that there's a future for ethnic Israel and that the Jewish people have a right to their ancient homeland. But they're saying, you know, this war and what's happening over there, and I think they're probably referring to the world turning against Israel, and you know, will Zionism survive? And really, when you think about it, that's really, in some ways, the question of the end times. You know, will Zionism, will the nation of Israel survive? So share some of your thoughts with us about that.
Well, let's read Jeremiah 31. As long as we see the sun and the moon and the stars, we know that Israel is going to survive. And I mean, if you want to argue Zionism, That's simply the longing of the Jewish people to go back to the homeland. And as we speak, that is on absolute exponential overdrive increase. And beyond that, there's a new spiritual awakening. Now, they're not running necessarily to Jesus as Messiah yet, but first they have to acknowledge God before they're going to acknowledge Jesus as Messiah. So it's a process. And I'm thinking of Hosea 5:15, in their affliction, they'll seek me earnestly. And in the affliction of all that's been going on with them for the last certainly 80 years, we can go back before that. This is turning the hearts to better understand, for them to better understand their Bible. And in better understanding their Bible, there's an opportunity for them to better understand Jesus as Messiah. And that's what we need to be hoping and praying for. It's wonderful to see the fulfillment of Scripture with the going back to the land, but we do want to see the heart of everyone turn to Jesus as Lord, because that is where there is salvation. And apart from that, it's eternal